you, Michael, and thanks for Metro Library for having me. I'm really excited to be a part of this conversation. Definitely wanted to give the perspective of what's happening in the academic library space. I'm not going to repeat some of the things that were discussed before. They actually kind of, make a nice place for us to talk about what is happening here. I'm Sandra Aya Enimil, and I'm the Program Director for Scholar Communication and Information Policy at Yale Library. And what does that mean? That means that I talk to faculty, staff, students, researchers about publishing, copyright, open access. I'm also chair of the License Review Steering Committee, which deals with managing and negotiating licenses for our electronic resources. And then just because I have a JD, I also get to see all types of licenses, agreements, et cetera. Anything that kind of sounds vaguely legal somehow makes it to my desk. And people ask me to provide them with some information or resources on what are the next steps. So I'm hoping to take you on a wild but short ride today, talking about what's happening with library licensing, talk about open access. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the term, but to talk about it from a perspective of a research-intensive institution. Also talk about what's happening with these new deals that are in place and what we think might be next. So, in terms of collection, we collect a lot of the same things as public libraries. We are doing working with and negotiating with the same publishers, different arms of the same publishers, and then some publishers that are specific to the academic context. But we're buying tons of physical content and buying access to, so not buying anymore, access to a lot of content. Not to mention we buy services that support our work, cataloging systems, institutional repositories, and yeah, we are still buying DVDs. They're not extinct yet. So, as Michelle discussed, the physical content is governed by US copyright law. The digital stuff is not. So it is governed by contracts and agreements that we agree to. I had a thought exercise a while ago, which was that what if, when this was first presented to the first library, they were like, no, this isn't different from our physical stuff. We still need to get the same pricing and still go with that, and how that might have been received. I wonder, it happened a long time ago, so who knows and who was in the room, but I wonder what would have happened if there was that pushback. So talking about what's happened with the age of the internet and with scholarly works. So in academia, people are here doing research, groundbreaking, innovative research that they are circulating for the betterment of society, for the betterment of everyone, and also as ways to forward conversation on a number of different scales in social sciences and the sciences, in the humanities. And so with the dawn of the internet, the way that people can share this content is they can share it instantly. But the market for physical works, we're for a long time publishing physical journals, and it would take a long time for the publishing process to go through with peer review, with actual publication of those physical works. But now that we have the internet, everything is much more streamlined and can happen much more quickly. So, but there was also a barrier to that traditional system where if you could afford to have it, if you're the Yales of the world, you can afford to have all of that kind of material in all that you could house, all that you could physically store, you could have access to because you had the resources to be able to get that. Other institutions would not. In ways around that, we worked with US copyright law to be able to loan things out to other places through interlibrary loan, or to give access to people who may not be at our institution but needed to get access to that resource. We could provide that with the physical materials. With open access, with the open access movement, which was started by librarians and scholars and researchers who wanted a way to be able to share content fairly quickly through the internet and to find a way for it not to be so closed off. We were moving with that to try to remove barriers and make research more quickly available to the folks who needed to be able to see it. So to the scholarly community, which is beyond your institution, naturally, and also to maybe the folks who are impacted by that research. They should be able to see it. This is what is behind the open access movement. And a lot of the principles and things that are governing this for libraries, especially those in academic spaces, are working with our researchers to ensure that they retain their copyright, so they're able to make uses that make the most sense for their research. They can share with colleagues, they can make it available to funders, they can do all types of things if they're retaining copyright. So they can use it in classroom, they can do whatever they want to do with that content. They're also using this as a way to make the scholarship more openly available. The full life cycle of research is part of the record, so you can see where it went, how it was shared. If authors can keep access to their preprint and their ability to share it, they can put that up before it even goes through the peer review process, maybe even getting feedback and information from other scholars on how they can improve and make that paper better. Then when there is a final version, that version is available openly for people to be able to critique, enjoy, process, work with that within the scholarly process, the scholarly environment. Strategies behind this are, again, with the advocacy of being able to talk to authors about their rights, and also dealing with funding agencies, whether those are federal or private funding agencies, about what this means in terms of, like, for example, the OSTP memo about federal funding agencies making the research that they fund openly available by 2025. Also with Coalition S for the European countries and their researchers wanting to make access to content quickly, and that anything that's funded by federal government is made quickly available to whoever needs to be able to see it. Also, the strategies behind this are some institutions have put out open access policies, invested heavily in open access, and that means a variety of ways of doing this. So maybe funding APCs or paying for discount programs, paying or funding into book publishing projects, like towards an open monograph ecosystem. This is something that was for the humanities, researchers working in the humanities who were publishing monographs. So people who are publishing journals, libraries have been involved in investing heavily in open access and trying to make content more widely available beyond their own institutional walls. We've also been funding institutional and subject matter repositories so that people are able to find the content where they think it should be. And, as institutions, Yale is one, we have an institutional repository called Eli Scholar. A number of other institutions also fund that, where they are hosting content that is created by their own researchers. And this is the way that we feel that we're actively contributing to this space. So to get into this, the new things that are happening. So we had the traditional subscription model where we would buy a physical volume, journal, etc. We would buy that, we would get it in our collection, we would make it available to folks. This translated into the digital age, where it became, okay, we're traditional, we are buying a subscription to a digital journal. Now we have access to it. We're providing access through links, through the internet, through shibboleth, through whatever authentication method for only our authorized users to be able to use. So that's the shift when it came to digital. And then, we had the open access thing where we were contributing to, through the use of author processing charges or author publishing fees, we were contributing to authors being able to make that work openly available. So once that fee was paid, then the research was made openly available and anyone could access it and be able to use that work. So we had that more traditional model. Now we're moving into this space where, and then yes, I do still have the question mark, still I'm questioning if it is, what is being called transformative agreements. And you may also have heard these called publish and read agreements, where you are, as a library or as the institution, paying for your researchers to publish. So you are covering the cost of the publication for your researchers. It's not intended as a vanity publication. For a number of fields, this is how it's been happening for the last 20, 25 years, that the institution, usually the library, is somehow funding their ability to publish content, and then it's made available for other people to be able to consume. So publish and read is pay to publish. Read and publish, you're paying both to read. So in that subscription model, traditional subscription model, paying to read, and also paying to publish. So also, in addition to paying for your researchers and students to be able to get access to content. You're also paying for those researchers to publish in those publications. And at the end of that, those arrangements, it is intended that the work be made available openly. There may be embargoes that are still in place, but the idea is that that work will eventually be made openly available to everyone. So in this chart, it's just showing a lot of the different things that are happening now. In the first column, you can see the like traditional open access sort of model, where it is a traditional, we're paying the subscription fee, and the fee is determined, or the fee is paid by the author or through their funding for their research. But the library is only paying for a subscription to access that journal or the content. The newer arrangements, which I think transitional probably makes more sense rather than transformational. It is where a negotiation happens between the institution and the vendor or the publisher to say, you have this many researchers who have published in our journals across all the ones that we may represent, which could be 1, which could be 300, you never know. And they're saying, this is how many people publish. And so that is where we're getting the number of how much you should pay to take away the author processing fee altogether for all of the authors that are affiliated with your institution. The other programs that we are seeing are these discount programs, where again, it is based on how many authors have published with this particular vendor or publisher. And we are paying an amount to the publisher and offering a discount to our researchers. So it's not the full fee, which some of those author processing charges range from $500 to, I believe, last I saw was $11,500 for an article to be published. So those fees we can offer with this particular program 10 to 15% off of the APC. And then the balance is either paid by the author, by their department, or by their funding agency if they're able to have that as part of the funding for their research. And then we're now seeing new discount models where it's again based on how many of our researchers are publishing with them. And this is much higher than the previous APC discount programs, but we're able to offer a 20% discount, and then the authors are responsible for getting the balance paid. So with these new models, it's interesting to think about, like, what is our new role in this landscape? Are we now publishers? Are we funders? Are we just a simple access point now that we've just made it available? It's now open access, so yay. What is happening? What are we doing? Or is it that we're all of these things? And what does any of that mean for us? So in terms of what's next, I think there's still opportunities for us in thinking about what I mentioned earlier in terms of advocacy and talking to our researchers, also talking to funders, especially since now we have these new memos, both in the United States and in Europe, which are saying, if this is money that's spent by the government to support research, that research, the result of that research, the scholarship that comes out of that, and the data, that all needs to be made openly available as soon as possible, no embargo. And so part of that conversation is, okay, so then how does that happen? What happens next? For the OSTP memo, they've said that green, which is authors submitting preprints to authorized repositories, is acceptable. But for those of us who are in academic libraries, we know of a thing called tenure and promotion, which could make that either not that great of a outlet for some faculty members, or it could be fine. Either way, we don't know, but there's still a lot of questions about like how people will actually receive this and work towards it. And libraries are working really hard. Our representatives, our agents are, through ARL, ALA, are all thinking about like, how do we make sure that we are informing libraries, informing the institutions that we work for about what's happening with this and what it will mean for our researchers who are getting federal funding. The deals that are coming through, like I showed you an example of 3 of them, they're all new and they're coming, every day we get a new vendor, new publisher saying, okay, we have one now. And some of them are great and they make sense and we're signing up for them. Some of them don't make any sense at all. So, where we might have been paying a publisher at the exorbitant amount probably of, $40,000, $50,000. And now they're coming with a new deal that says, okay, based on how many people publish, if you want to remove the APCs from them, then you now will take a subscription for $500,000 or something like that. Not just, not that I'm pointing out anybody, no names here, but yeah, those are things that are coming our way. And we're just like, yeah, no, we can't do that. And you can imagine how unsustainable that could possibly end up being for us. So I think it's really important to investigate these, negotiate, try not to tie our own hands. Sometimes librarians, we can be our own worst enemy. We sign up for things and then later we're like, oh wait, no, we got tricked. And so trying to make sure that we have the most information before we enter into these agreements are a benefit for us. We definitely need to be realistic about the benefits and the challenges of any of these agreements that we're thinking about. And I think, what I've noticed since the pandemic is this willingness and desire for more transparency, for people to know how much we're paying for access to a lot of this material, because I think we've really ridden and worked with this whole notion of librarians being magic, and we are, but our magic costs money, and we need to be talking about that and making sure that folks are having the understanding of where the money is coming from. And then I think, there for us in academic librarianship, there's also opportunities to talk to our Office of Research, our provost offices to kind of say, like, here are the new things that are happening. Can we talk about the funding and where the money is going to come from to support the needs of researchers who are going to be impacted by this? So I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to be here again and talk about the experiences of academic libraries in terms of ownership and licensing content.